Digging to survive. I can see hints. Translator. Simple MTL editor. Simple MTL. Chapters 1 to 20. Chapter 1. Survival in the Catacombs. Welcome to the game of survival in the catacombs. As you can see, everyone is trapped in the catacombs. Survival is your only goal. If you want to live as long as possible, you must remember the following important points. 1. The soil can stop you from moving forward, but you can dig it out. There are 10 excavations every day. Only when you enter the next catacomb can you be considered to have dug it out completely. Closing square bracket. 2. Do not casually abandon the runic base. Below, the runic base is the most trustworthy. 3. The world you are in is connected to various subterranean caves. Choose carefully to excavate. 4. Upon entering the next subterranean cave, the return passage will be sealed. Do not dream of returning to the previous subterranean cave. Every step is exceptionally important. It is like playing chess. 5. The next catacombs might have survival resources, or there might be dangerous crypt creatures. Defeating the crypt creatures will bring a pleasant surprise. 6. Try your best to plunder as many resources as possible. It's not shameful to be a locust. 7. If you accidentally dig up your own kind, congratulations. Perhaps you can form an alliance or trade. Or, you can plunder the resources that the other party has painstakingly accumulated and become a wave of fertilizer. 8. The runic base is bound to you. Once the chant is activated, the home will be opened. 9. There are days and nights in the catacombs world. 10. If you focus, you can open the game panel. There are more functions waiting for you to explore. There's no need to worry about the elderly, children, and pregnant women. They will be taken care of. The disabled will recover from their illnesses. I wish everyone a happy game. In the square, sealed catacombs. Klein frowned slightly. Rows of small words appeared on the translucent light blue panel in front of him. A hint of doubt flashed across his handsome face. If he remembered correctly, when he went shopping today, he saw people falling backward. Even he wasn't spared. After that, he lost consciousness. When he woke up, he found himself in a strange place. There was soil all around him. There was light inside, and there was no lack of oxygen. It was completely against the laws of nature. A survival game? Klein muttered as he squatted down, his palm touching the ground. He stroked the soil inch by inch before touching the surrounding soil walls. It was firm, tight, and cold. The space for activity was narrow. It was about 2 meters in length and width. If it was a claustrophobic person, they would definitely feel particularly uncomfortable at this moment. There was a rusty shovel beside his feet. There was also an oval metal ball engraved with a strange texture, about the size of a thumb. Klein looked at the 2 items. Ordinary shovel. A trustworthy tool that can be used to dig a safe passage. Runic base, damaged. This is where you live. Try to repair and expand it. It might become a palace. The small words appeared again. Klein picked up the 2 items. A shovel wasn't unusual, but it was the first time he had seen a runic base. I'll first figure out the functions of the game panel. Klein focused his attention and silently read the game panel. As expected, the translucent panel unfolded in front of him. Chat, trade, auction, manufacture. There was a shovel icon in the upper right corner. The number behind it was 10, representing the number of excavations left for the day. Klein focused his gaze on the chat button. The page changed. 2 brand new buttons appeared. They were the World Channel and the Regional Channel. He first entered the World Channel. Can anyone see this? Help. I'm trapped in a cave. Can someone help me? I'm surrounded by red earth. Were we kidnapped by aliens? Do you also have rusty shovels? The end of the human world is coming. Haha, everyone is going to die. One conversation after another slid by. Klein noticed the small horn pattern in the upper right corner. Following it was a number 1. Small horn. In the early stages of the game, you can only post 1 message a day in the World Channel. If you want to chat freely, you can enter the Regional Channel. In the early stages, a loudspeaker a day was definitely not used to seek help. Klein looked away. From the looks of it, everyone was trapped in the catacombs. There was no difference in the beginning. There was only the shovel and the runic base. I can only try to save myself. Shouting in the channel is useless. If I don't exchange survival experiences, it will be a waste of time. Klein exited the World Channel. He entered the regional channel to take a look. It was similar to a chat group. Members. 1,000. All the public channel's headshots were of real people. The nickname was a combination of name and height. Is anyone near me? I was shouting just now, but I heard a knock. I'm slapping the mud wall on the left. Can anyone hear me? I've never done any heavy work before. Now, I have to dig. Boo-hoo. Klein silently observed for a minute before exiting in disappointment. All of them were in a daze, and no one was digging for the time being. Klein wanted to watch others dig first. The game had given him a hint. There might be dangerous crypt creatures in the next subterranean chamber. It was like opening a blind box. No one knew whether the next subterranean chamber was a resource or a crisis. Therefore, he needed a guinea pig. Following that, Klein checked the trading and auction functions. The trading platform provided players with barter. The trading rules were free, and the items could be given away for free. An auction was similar to a transaction. There was no intermediary fee. The auction time and the price were set by the owner. Open the manufacturing interface. Klein looked at another function. Whoosh! It was a full page. Ordinary shovel. Wood 0 halves, iron 0 halves. Ordinary spear. Iron, wood 0 halves, iron 0/1. Ordinary spear. Stone, wood 0 halves, stone 0/1. Charcoal. Wood 0/1, fire source. Ordinary light armor. Iron 0/4, rope 0 halves. Each item and equipment required different materials to be synthesized. Obviously, gathering and producing materials was especially important in the survival game. Klein studied the game interface. His gaze landed on the runic base metal ball in his hand. This thing looked like a high-tech or magical product. Runic base, open, he chanted. Instantly, the metal ball vibrated. It gradually turned into a ball of light. Silver-white light radiated outwards. It was like a projector. The speed of light was projected around him. In about a few seconds, a simple and crude little stone house was formed. The entire narrow space was covered. On the ground, there were stains. There was nothing inside, not even a bed. It really is a bare house. Klein shook his head and tentatively said, "Runic base, close." The small stone house trembled slightly. It turned into dozens or hundreds of beams of light speed and flowed back into Klein's hand. It condensed into the original metal sphere again. It was very magical. Chapter 2. I can see hints. A player was trapped in an enclosed space. There were two choices at the moment. First, find a random direction to dig in. Second, sit back and wait for death. The first choice was to die or live depending on luck. The second choice might allow him to obtain a little more time. Without food and water, he would die in a few days. Klein preferred to take the initiative. Therefore, he planned to choose a direction to dig in. The item is rather suitable. Klein weighed the shovel. He put the metal ball into his pocket. He first looked forward. Which direction should I choose? I wonder how long it will take before I reach the next catacomb. As Klein pondered, he couldn't help but focus his attention on the earthen wall in front of him. There's nothing in the catacombs in front of you. You'll be wasting your energy. A row of pulsating golden words condensed in front of him. It was completely different from the game prompt. It was as though it was floating in the air. Klein blinked hard and focused his attention once again. The dissipated words condensed once again. This is a prompt? Klein didn't know if it was a game mechanism. He turned around and looked at the right-hand side. The right-hand side is a good choice. There's no danger. With the resources you need, there will be surprises if you search carefully. The golden text had already fixed every direction. Even if Klein changed directions, the mud wall he faced was still known as the right-hand side. Klein looked elsewhere. Digging down, the soil is thin. The resources will be enough for you to eat and drink for a day. Good heavens! In the catacombs above, there's not only food and drink, but there's also a defensive weapon. Unfortunately, you can't climb up. Only fools dig to the left. There's a group of poisonous insects there. Although they're not fatal, it's enough to make you swell up. There's nothing in the catacombs behind. You'll be wasting your energy. There were 6 directions in total. All of them had golden text prompts. If the prompts didn't mislead Klein, then it would be best to dig the catacombs above. Unfortunately, without any tools to climb, it wouldn't be easy to dig. He took the next best option to dig to the right. Klein faced the right mud wall. After pondering for a moment, he opened the chat channel. Perhaps other people could see the prompts? He first looked at the world channel before opening the regional channel. No one mentioned it. It seems like only I can see it. Klein came to a conclusion. Without a reference, he didn't know if the hint was right. I'll give it a try. He held the shovel and dropped it. It was easier to dig than he had imagined. Under Klein's labor, digging up soil was as easy as drinking water. Furthermore, it was clearly just a spade, but there was a large piece of soil missing. The amount didn't match at all. System notification. Sand +1. Klein paused. The soil that had been dug up just now vanished into thin air. The metal ball in his pocket vibrated gently. Automatically put it into the base? That's right, sand is also a resource. Klein continued brandishing his shovel, his speed constantly increasing. System notification. Sand +1. System notification. Sand +1. System notification. Sand +1. After the 26th time, there was no longer any soil blocking the road ahead. It was pitch black, and he couldn't see the situation in front of him clearly. The entrance seemed to be covered by a layer of black film. I thought I could use a bug, but it doesn't seem to work. Klein had originally planned on only digging and not going in, but now he was observing the entrance of the passageway. If there was any danger, he would immediately retreat. The number of excavations hasn't decreased. I might have to enter the next catacombs before it becomes A9. Klein turned his head back. He had just brandished it more than 20 times, but he had dug more than 10 meters. If he were to go back now, he could return to the catacomb from before. During the excavation process, he wanted to change the direction of the excavation. He dug a few meters to each side of the tunnel, and as though he had encountered a wall of air, the soil was as hard as iron. He could only proceed in the original direction. He judged that the entire tunnel had been fixed. He was only allowed to enter the connected catacombs. Let's go in and take a look. Klein bent his body and took a step forward. His field of vision instantly widened. The second catacomb was even larger than the first. It was no longer empty. There were some dark purple plants in the corner, like seaweed. In the middle of the catacomb, there was a wooden treasure chest. Klein quickly approached and observed the wooden chest. Wooden treasure chest. The lowest level treasure chest in the catacombs. There are usually small surprises when opening it, but there might also be hidden dangers. A note from the game interface. There's water and food in this wooden treasure chest. There's no danger. The golden prompt text jumped above the treasure chest. Klein carefully opened the treasure chest. As mentioned in the question, it was safe and harmless without any unexpected incidents. System notification. 400 milliliters mineral water +2. System notification. 400 grams wheat bread +2. System notification. Wooden treasure chest +1. 2 bottles of mineral water and 2 unpackaged bread. All 3 items were automatically sucked into the base. System notification. The wooden treasure chest can be decomposed into 4 pieces of wood. Do you wish to decompose? System notification. 2 bottles of 400 milliliters mineral water can be decomposed into 800 milliliters water and 2 plastic bottles. Do you wish to decompose? Klein calculated in his mind and muttered, the wooden treasure chest will be broken down, but the mineral water will not be broken down. System notification. Wood +4. If I put the item in, will it be convenient to take it out? Klein had a thought. Take out a bottle of mineral water. His hand sank. The mineral water that had been put in fell into his hand. It was like an interspatial ring. With bread and water, even if I don't move, I can live for a few more days. According to the golden prompt, there should be something else that can be gathered here. Klein walked to a corner. Plants might also be resources that could be gathered. Fluorescent grass. Cannot be used. When it gets dark, they will emit fluorescent light, the most common plant in the underground world. Oh, harmless fluorescent grass. One came from the game interface. The other was a golden prompt. Klein crouched down to gather it. Half a minute later, he had gathered everything. System notification. Fluorescent grass +6. System notification. Fluorescent grass seed +2. The seed was an unexpected harvest. Could it be that you didn't notice the small sand dune protruding in the corner? Just as Klein was about to get up, Another golden notification appeared. There is something hidden? He focused his eyes and hurriedly picked up the shovel to dig. System notification. Sand +1. System notification. Sand +1. Clang. The shovel had only been brandished twice before it hit a hard object. System notification. Iron +2. Klein was delighted. This was probably the surprise described in the notification. With iron, Klein could at least build a decent self-defense weapon. Chapter 3. Excavation. Making spears. During this excavation, the resources collected were iron block 2, wood 4, sand 28, fluorescent grass 6, mineral water 2, bread 2. Among them, the value of sand was the lowest. Since they were trapped in the catacombs, any random shovel would yield them 1 unit. I wonder how much space these resources take up. Klein recalled that every time he brandished the shovel, he would get rid of a large piece of sand. If he were to store the 1-to-1 ratio in the runic base, a small space of about 8 cubic meters would probably not be enough. Open the game interface, Klein muttered. A light blue translucent panel appeared. Other than a row of function buttons, there was a small room icon in the upper left corner. This represented the capacity of the runic base. The color of the room icon represented the degree of space taken up. If there was more than 80% of the remaining space, it was green. Between 60% and 80%, it was yellow. Between 40% and 60%, it was orange. Between 20% and 40%, it was bright red. Below 20%, it was dark red. At that moment, the room icon was green. It meant that there was sufficient space left. Runic base, open. Klein was puzzled as he opened the base to check. Whoosh! The runic base opened. Everything was neatly placed. Sand, iron, and wood were all placed in square shapes. They only occupied a corner. Furthermore, the ratio wasn't 1-to-1. Klein kept the base and took out a unit of sand. Hualala! The square sand suddenly expanded. It formed a small sand dune. As expected, Klein didn't dwell on this matter. Next, he tried the manufacturing function. Open the manufacturing panel. The interface change. Ordinary spear. Iron, wood 4 halves. Iron block 2/1. Materials met. Ordinary iron spear selected. Confirm forging. System notification. Wood 2, iron block 1. System notification. Ordinary spear, iron, successfully forged. A short spear about 1.5 meters long appeared in Klein's hand. The body of the spear was a rough wooden stick. The spearhead was made of iron. Ordinary spear, iron. A brand new spear that has never seen blood before. It's estimated to be 1.5 meters long. With it, you can deal with some weak crypt creatures. Not bad. Klein gestured a few times. It didn't feel good to the touch, but its weight was appropriate. Peefed, peefed, peefed. He aimed at the earth wall and stabbed it more than 30 times. He hadn't had any professional training, so he lacked knowledge in this area. He could only adjust it bit by bit. After finding a pose that he thought felt good, he would strengthen his training to ensure that he had a certain level of proficiency. From the moment he began digging, Klein understood at least one thing. The soil couldn't withstand digging. It wouldn't be surprising if a crypt creature suddenly appeared from the side. And to open the runic base, it would take a few seconds. If he was closer, he wouldn't be able to hide in time. Klein put away his short spear and thought of the other players. He wondered how their progress was. He opened a chat channel. First, he checked the world channel. Where did the excavated soil go? Pay attention. The runic base can be used as an interspatial ring. I dug it out. It's dark inside. I didn't dare to go in. I just threw a rock in, but there was no sound at all. That black membrane seems to be soundproof. How terrifying. Who can save me? Mom, I want to go home. He looked at the regional channel again. I dug to the right and it's all black. What should I do next? I made a new discovery. I can't change the direction during the excavation process. Brother, the next time we meet, everyone raise their shovels with both hands. That means we're on the same side, okay? I'm so hungry. I haven't eaten anything all day and was sent here. Can anyone spare me some food? A small group of people stood rooted to the ground as they looked around. For the time being, no one mentioned digging the second catacomb. Or rather, The fellows who had dug the second catacomb were all like Klein, silent. Klein observed for a moment and gained some information. Not only could the black membrane block movement of the next catacomb, one couldn't hear anything either. This information was rather important. If there was any sound from the excavation, the crypt creatures would come when they heard the sound and guard the exit. There was no way to play. Which direction should I dig in next? Klein exited the group chat. The subsequent adventures would be much safer. Klein first looked at the tunnel he had just dug. Unknowingly, the tunnel had been sealed by soil. Take your eyes back. It's impossible to dig here. Don't waste your energy. As expected, Klein checked the other directions in turn. He didn't look up. He couldn't go up anyway. If there was something good, it would make him uncomfortable. Continue digging to the right. There's still good luck. There's a bag of expired spicy sticks inside that can satisfy your hunger. There are flying snakes in the catacombs behind. If you want to become their food, feel free to try. Dig down. There's a copper box at the bottom. There's a surprise inside. It's best to dig close to the corner so that you won't fall and hurt yourself. There's nothing in the catacombs at the front. You'll waste your effort. There was no doubt. The best choice was to dig down. There was a copper box at the bottom. Water and bread directly burst out of the wooden box. What would be in the copper box? Chapter 4. Water Condenser Blueprint. Choose a corner first. Klein followed the instructions and found a random corner. Before he brandished the shovel, a line of golden words appeared once again. This corner is dangerous. Klein went to the other side. This corner is dangerous. The same hint. With no other choice, Klein could only shift another location. This corner is fine. Choose a location. Dig. Klein brandished his shovel. System notification. Sand +1. Sand +1. Sand +1. Klein didn't really need sand. The main reason was that it took up too much space. However, there was no need to pay attention to this at the moment. He directly dug down into the catacombs. Klein wanted to use the sand to create a cushion. He dug hard. Soon, the 20-meter deep underground cave was dug. Another shovel. It was empty. Klein looked down. A black hole appeared. What could be inside? Klein thought to himself, unsure. However, Klein decided to try the situation first. Klein thought. There seemed to be the sound of a unit of sand falling. He pricked up his ears to listen. He couldn't hear the sound of sand falling to the ground at all. Is the sound blocked? Klein muttered. Whatever. He continued to discharge sand. After throwing a few units of sand, Klein loosened his grip and descended freely. His gaze was constantly focused on the ground below. It didn't take long before he reached the bottom. The entire height of the fall was about 2 meters. As he had been prepared, he didn't get hurt. However, he didn't see the sand that had been laid down earlier. Anything that was thrown past the black hole would disappear. The spot where Klein stood belonged to the high platform in the third catacombs. It was next to a corner of the catacombs. It formed a slope. The first thing Klein noticed was the treasure chest leaning against the wall. It quickly slid down the slope. In front of him was a bronze treasure chest. Bronze treasure chest. 1 level higher than a wooden treasure chest. There's a high probability of a small surprise, but there might also be a hidden danger. There's a unique blueprint inside this bronze treasure chest. There's no danger. There were 2 different notes. Klein opened the bronze treasure chest with ease after reading them. There was a blueprint inside. System notification. Bronze treasure chest +1. System notification. Bronze treasure chest can be split into 4 copper pieces. Do you wish to split it? System notification. Excellent condenser blueprint +1. System notification. Do you wish to learn an excellent condenser blueprint? Klein didn't bother with the bronze treasure chest for the time being. The blueprint was clearly more attractive to him. He flipped through it carefully. There were dense lines and patterns on the blueprint. In addition, there were many unknown words. Excellent water condenser blueprint. It belongs to daily use runic devices. Together, it can condense water vapor in the air. The efficiency isn't bad. Every adventurer will fall in love with it. In the subterranean world, the quality of tools and equipment varied. They could be classified as ordinary, excellent, perfect, rare, epic, legendary, or divine. If an item was damaged, its grade wouldn't be displayed. For example, The runic base was currently damaged, so the grade couldn't be seen. Only after it was repaired would the grade be displayed. This is a runic device? Klein checked it a few times. There was no such thing on the manufacturing list. Klein was certain that it was a good item. It was just like a runic base. Just by having the word runic, it possessed a mystical ability. Learn. The blueprint in Klein's hand turned into a purple light and instantly entered his body. Learning successful. Following the system's prompt, Klein silently chanted in his heart, "Open the manufacturing page." Instantly, a row of synthesis lists appeared in front of Klein. He searched for the water condenser and then automatically slid the interface to the end. Excellent water condenser. Copper 0/4, iron 0/2, wood 2/2, water rune 0/1, fire rune 0/1. Of the 5 synthetic materials, only wood was sufficient. If the copper treasure chest was decomposed, Klein would probably be able to gather the copper. The names of these 2 runes sound very impressive, Klein thought to himself. On the other hand, in order to save water, he hadn't been willing to take a sip even though his mouth was already parched. However, Klein had more important things to do, so he didn't have the time to care about anything else. Copper treasure chest decomposition, system notification. Copper block +4. With that, he needed to gather the other 3 materials for the excellent water condenser. The remaining 2 runes were definitely not easy to obtain. However, it was also possible that Klein was overthinking things. Perhaps the runes weren't anything valuable. Klein continued digging. The next 2 times, he chose to go forward and dig to the right. In total, he obtained 4 iron blocks, 4 wood, 2 wheat bread, and 1 mineral water. The length of the tunnel was different every time he dug. It varied from a few meters to dozens of meters. Furthermore, some of the catacombs didn't look as simple as he had imagined. They were even very troublesome. From the looks of it, Klein had to be careful in his next step. Chapter 5. Trading Market, Exchanging Resources. The left cavern is filled with poisonous gas. Please prepare a gas mask, or you will die if you enter. Continue digging forward, there are scarlet flying insects are waiting for you. There is a high chance that you won't be able to defeat them. In the cavern above, there are 3 anesthetized bats. If you are bitten, you will fall asleep. In the right cavern, there is a sleeping crypt creature, but your short spear proficiency is not high enough. Below, it's better not to dig. You'll definitely die. Apart from the rear, the 5 directions were dangerous. And it was extremely large. Klein suddenly hesitated. Which side should I choose? It definitely wouldn't work from the bottom left. There were 3 left. There are too many scarlet flying insects. It wouldn't work. Up or right? Klein looked up. It was 4 meters tall. If he relied on the sand to constantly raise his height, he could climb up. But the final step was very difficult. When he climbed up, if there was any movement, the 3 anesthetized bats would pounce on him. If he was stuck at the entrance of the cave, he would be gone. He was too passive. From the looks of it, only the right side was feasible. Klein clenched his short spear and took a deep breath. Should I kill my way out now? Of course not. After some thought, he said, the hint told me that I don't have enough proficiency. Perhaps, when I have enough proficiency, I can kill my way out. Next, I should practice well and not dig any further. Klein had another thought. Crypt creatures should at least eat. Would they temporarily leave the catacombs? He stopped to observe for a moment. Klein tried stabbing a few times with the short spear. He had already summoned the runic base and was hiding inside to practice. Although the space was small, it was very safe. If a clumsy crypt creature came out of nowhere and was caught off guard, it would be easy for something to happen. 800, 900, 1000 times. Klein kept practicing. When he was tired, he rested for a while and drank some water. Soon, there were only 2.5 bottles left of the 3 bottles of mineral water. It was time for rest, and he had nothing to do. Klein turned on the chat channel. After circling around for a while, he discovered that many people were asking for water and food. 5 or 6 hours had passed since everyone entered the catacombs. Klein had dug to the 5th catacombs, while most of the others stayed at the 2nd or 3rd catacombs. Some were injured, while others were lucky enough to dig up something good. Similarly, there were already people who had died. Each regional channel had a total of 1,000 people at the start of the game. At that moment, All of them had their numbers reduced. There were 937 players left in Klein's regional channel. This was undoubtedly a form of hidden pressure. Choose carefully, or people will really die. When someone dug a second catacomb, they could muster up their courage. When they were about to dig a third catacomb and saw someone die, they immediately wilted. My progress is considered fast. If nothing unexpected happens, from the first catacomb to the second catacomb, no one will die. If they're lucky, they'll be able to dig up something good. Starting from the third catacomb, the risk will gradually increase. Klein fell into deep thought. He logged out of the chat channel and entered the trading platform. There were people who began trading and bartering. So many people are short of water? Klein browsed through them and found that they were all asking for food and water. After all, survival materials were currently the most scarce and most important. No one is trading runes. He thought for a moment and said, "Break down a bottle of mineral water." He was prepared to throw 400 milliliters of water to the market later, only exchanging for water runes and fire runes. The other items could be traded, but the plastic bottle had to be kept. How the trader drank it had nothing to do with him. System notification. Water plus 400 milliliters. System notification. Plastic bottle plus 1. In the trading channel, seller. Klein 182.56. Item. 400 milliliters mineral water. Requirements. 1 water rune. Peeptions. 1 fire rune. Inventory. 1. Just as Klein put the item up, the chat channel immediately exploded. FK. Someone is trading with water. What's a rune? If anyone trades with him, I'll trade with you. Water is a scarce resource. I haven't seen a drop of it in the trading market today, yet someone is willing to trade with it. Gone. That retard is spouting nonsense on the World Channel? I want to trade with Big Brother Klein in private. There was a heated discussion over here. On the other side, a bunch of people were privately chatting with Klein through the trade channel. Brother Wei, can I exchange 100 units of sand for your water? Brother, do you want to trade with me? I can satisfy any of your requirements. Someone smiled and said, I'm a billionaire. Give me the water. I'll give you 10 billion when we get out. Someone then asked, Big Brother, do you want iron? I want the water. Not a single person had water or fire runes. Among the tens of thousands of private messages, there were some foreigners' avatars. However, the messages they sent to Klein were in Chinese. Probably, the system could automatically translate them. Among these people, there were some celebrities that Klein was familiar with, and even rich people and officials. Some begged Klein, some threatened him, some promised him rewards, and some seduced him with their beauty. Klein ignored all of them. In front of Klein, everyone in this world was equal. Without runes, there was no way they could be exchanged. God knew if they would be able to return to the real world alive. After resting for 20 minutes, no one traded. Klein got up and continued practicing his short spear. Hard work always paid off. Now, Klein's proficiency with his short spear had increased by a lot. A few hours later, the light in the catacombs dimmed. There was only a quarter of a bottle of mineral water left. He had also eaten a loaf of bread. At that moment, Klein checked the catacombs on the right again. There was a change in the notification. In the cave on the right, the crypt creature has woken up. Don't startle it. Wait for daybreak and end it with your short spear. The notification revealed 2 pieces of information. 1. The crypt creature had woken up. 2. It no longer mentioned the proficiency of the short spear. Perhaps, Klein's proficiency had reached the requirements. Chapter 6. Obtain the water rune and enter the next catacomb. The catacomb fell into darkness. Klein lay on the ground, his hands and feet cold. Even in the runic base, people couldn't withstand the cold of the night. Fortunately, Klein ate well and his body was full of energy. As for those who were hungry without food, it was hard to imagine how miserable they would be. From time to time, Klein would check the catacombs in a few directions. He hoped that there would be some changes in the notifications. For example, that there would be a notification that the crypt creature had left. However, what he had hoped for didn't happen. The crypt creatures had never left the catacombs. Klein couldn't help but suspect that his previous guess was wrong. Can't this thing leave? It's a little like the monsters in the game. Could it be that it would always stay in one map and not have to eat or drink? Klein couldn't help but retort. He still wanted to steal from the crypt creatures, but it seemed like he had to give up on the idea. Everyone should be hungry by now, Klein guessed in his heart. He had eaten a loaf of bread 2 hours ago, and he wasn't even half full. There was no need to say anything about those unlucky people who didn't manage to dig up any food. He said, "Hang a loaf of bread on it now." The corners of Klein's mouth curled up. With a bunch of people starving, the bread must be even more tempting. A moment later, in the trading channel, seller. Klein, item. 400 grams wheat bread. Requirement. 1 water rune. Inventory. 1. With that, he had already hung up 2 items. During the day, no one had come to trade for 400 milliliters of mineral water. In the chat channel, many people couldn't sleep, and they didn't have any entertainment items, so they could only chat. FK. Big Brother Klein hung up his supplies again. I saw it. It's a loaf of bread. I'm so hungry. Sob, sob, sob. Can Lord Klein give a loaf of bread to a girl for free? Darn Americans, hanging up at a time like this. He wants runes again. What exactly is this? Does anyone know? If I have runes, I'll change them first. Sigh, it's more important to fill my stomach. When everyone realized that it was Klein again, they were filled with envy and resentment. God knows how lucky Klein was to have extra food and water. They didn't even have what he wanted. Klein was once again privately messaged by many people. This time, a group of people scolded him for being unsympathetic and even for moral kidnapping. Klein completely ignored them. He thought that he wouldn't gain anything tonight. 5 minutes later, a dialog box automatically popped up on the interface. In the private message channel, a filtering function could be set. Klein set fire and water runes as the keywords. Once it was triggered, the dialog box would pop up. Alice said, I have water runes. If you are willing to use 5 pieces of bread, I can make a deal with you. The portrait was of a pretty girl. She had a good appearance and a good temperament. Klein raised his eyebrows and smiled. Finally, a buyer had come to his door. Alice smiled and said, asking for 5 pieces of bread at once? Heh, is that too much? Klein shook his head and replied to Alice. Klein said, you should know that food is very precious at the moment. In the market, I'm the only one who sells it. Aren't you being too insincere by asking for 5 pieces at once? Alice. Is 3 pieces okay? Klein. Don't even think about it. I only have 1 piece left. If you don't want it, I'll eat it tomorrow. Alice. Then wait a moment. I'll think about it. 2 minutes later, system notification. 400 grams wheat bread transaction completed. Water rune +1. Klein checked the transaction record. Sure enough, Alice had used the water rune to exchange for it. A piece of wheat bread in front of him vanished into thin air. At the same time, a wooden fragment landed in front of Klein. The material was unknown. There were waves on the surface. A pale blue fluorescence lingered around it. Water rune. The selenium runes in the catacombs world are in doubt. They contain a mysterious power and have a wide range of uses. Klein held it in his hand and felt a chill. He tossed and turned it, but he couldn't figure out the material. Furthermore, the runes couldn't be decomposed. With the water rune, I'm missing a fire rune. Klein thought of this and hurriedly went to the trading channel to change the conditions for the 400 milliliters of mineral water. He would only use fire runes to trade for it. In the second half of the night, no one came to trade again. It was daybreak. The number of excavations had been restored to 10. He would head to the 6th catacomb today. Klein muttered to himself as he put away the runic base. At that moment, he focused his attention on observing the cave on the right. Shish, it has just fallen asleep. Now is not the time to attack. Klein was in no hurry. He first drank some water and ate some bread. An hour later, he checked again. Digging to the right is not bad. The one-eyed lizard is sleeping soundly. After entering, charge forward. With your short spear proficiency, when it opens its eyes, you can poke it blind. This will be a great harvest. As expected, the proficiency of the short spear was sufficient. Klein took a deep breath and took out his shovel. He dug out a tunnel first. The 2 catacombs were separated by an unknown number of meters. He wanted to dig out a large tunnel and adjust his condition before charging forward. A black hole appeared at a full 20 meters. To be on the safe side, Klein chose to watch again. The golden prompt didn't change. The one-eyed lizard was still sleeping soundly. The black hole completely blocked the sound of digging. Klein retreated back into the cave. He put away the shovel and sat down to rest. He had almost recovered his strength, so he got up and did some warm-up exercises. Everything was ready. He adjusted his state of mind. He gripped the short spear tightly. Charge. Klein was unprecedentedly calm. When he passed through the black hole, as expected, 4 meters away, a lizard creature that was nearly 1.5 meters long was sleeping soundly. Its face was ferocious and its whole body was green. It was a one-eyed lizard. Chapter 7. Successfully kill the one-eyed lizard and obtain a fire rune. The 6th catacomb was about 10 meters in length and width. There was a faint smell of blood in the air. There were many rocks on the ground. When Klein rushed out, he charged at the one-eyed lizard as fast as he could. Caw! He stepped on the rocks. There was a subtle movement. The one-eyed lizard suddenly opened its eyes. In the center of its head, there was indeed only one eye. It had caught the intruder. A hint of viciousness flashed in its eyes. At this moment, Klein and the one-eyed lizard were less than 2 meters away. Charge, stab. He had practiced it more than 20 times in his mind. He stabbed without any hesitation. He aimed at the one-eyed lizard. Although the one-eyed lizard had woken up, it was already too late. It tilted its head slightly, but the short spear accurately pierced its eyeball. Peefed. The one-eyed lizard let out a pained roar. Klein pulled out the short spear and quickly retreated. The one-eyed lizard's thick tail only swept through the air. Anger and pain had already caused it to leave its food and attack its surroundings frantically. Without a vision, it could only protect its surroundings, unable to find Klein's position. Klein carefully moved his feet, held his breath, and circled to the other side. A handful of sand appeared in his hand. Every time the one-eyed lizard approached, he would throw the sand to the other side. The one-eyed lizard would listen to the sounds and attack, but it would always miss. Now was the time to test his patience. Klein didn't dare to be careless. It was best not to be injured before he dug up medical resources. The one-eyed lizard is bleeding. After missing a few times, it gradually loses its patience. Be careful that it doesn't dig up the soil and escape. Above the one-eyed lizard, the golden text jumped. Klein raised his eyebrows. It seemed like his guess yesterday was wrong. Crypt creatures could leave the catacombs. He slowly moved his feet, occasionally throwing out a handful of sand to cover up the faint footsteps. Suddenly, the one-eyed lizard quickly dug up the ground. Shoo, shoo, shoo. The digging speed increased. Now is a good time. The prompt changed again. Klein suddenly stabbed out with his short spear. It was still aimed at its eyes. This time, the force was even stronger. It nearly surged into the depths of its head. He stirred it violently again. The one-eyed lizard struggled on the ground for less than half a minute before it stopped moving. System notification. Soul +1. Klein obtained a one-eyed lizard corpse. Decomposing the one-eyed lizard. System notification. One-eyed lizard meat +6. System notification. One-eyed lizard skin +1. System notification. One-eyed lizard blood +800 milliliters. System notification. One-eyed lizard bone +4. Among them, the lizard blood needed to be stored in a container. Yesterday, Klein drank a bottle of mineral water and sold another bottle. The 2 plastic bottles were filled to the brim. Soul? The soul of a one-eyed lizard? A special substance that emitted a faint light floated in Klein's hand. It looked a little like a ball of air. Soul. Kill the crypt creature and you will obtain it. It has a wide range of uses. Klein put it away and looked at the other trophies. One-eyed lizard meat. It's rich in nutrients, but it tastes a little sour. Current consumption of it has a satiation index of 4 stars. Overall score, 65. The overall score of wheat bread was less than 20. 1 piece of one-eyed lizard meat was equivalent to 3 pieces of wheat bread. One-eyed lizard blood. Trace elements. Consume it while it's hot. It can improve your physique. The skin and bones were ordinary. The meat was edible and not bad. As for the blood, it could improve one's physique? Klein licked his lips. It was just in time for his mouth to dry up. He picked up a bottle, looked up, and gulped it down. Lizard blood didn't smell good at all. Klein endured the fishy smell and drank a bottle without leaving a single drop. Suddenly, Waves of heat surged through his body. Awesome, Klein shouted. The second bottle. He continued to drink it. Gulp, gulp, burp. Klein wiped the corner of his mouth. In just a moment, the streams of heat flowed through his body, replenishing his stamina. There's still something left to plunder in the 6th catacombs. He surveyed his surroundings. There were traces of dried blood on the ground. It didn't belong to a one-eyed lizard. It was probably food from before. Apart from that, there was a bronze treasure chest in the corner of the catacomb. Opening the treasure chest. System notification. Bronze treasure chest +1. System notification. Iron block +2. System notification. Fire rune +2. Klein was delighted. Fire rune. After exchanging for water runes last night, there were still 2 fire runes today. With that, he had gathered all the materials needed to create the water condenser. Klein grabbed the fire rune. It felt warm in his hands. The shape and material were similar to water runes. However, the surface was a flame pattern that emitted a red light. Klein then disassembled the bronze treasure chest. At present, his net worth was as follows. Water rune 1, fire rune 2, soul 1, iron block 7, copper block 8, wood 6, fluorescent grass 6, fluorescent grass seed 2, lizard meat 6, bone 4, skin 1. There was only 1 wheat bread left, and less than a bottle of mineral water. Sand 20. Klein took the initiative to clear the sand so that it wasn't full. He opened the manufacturing panel. He selected an excellent water condenser. He confirmed the forging. System notification. Copper BLOCK 4, iron BLOCK 6, WOOD 2, water rune 1, fire rune 1. System notification. Excellent water condenser successfully forged. An instrument with copper and iron as the main body appeared in front of Klein. It was about a foot tall. It was like a small alchemy furnace. On the front was a wave pattern of water runes. On the ground was a flame pattern of fire runes. Chapter 8. Repair conditions. Search for the formula for healing medicine. Excellent water condenser. It's a daily runic device. It can be activated by adding fuel. It cannot be activated in the state of combat. Klein's palm touched the water condenser. It wasn't big, but its design was rather exquisite. It had a lid and looked like a small pill furnace. The interior should be a water condenser. The storage state meant that it could be activated by placing it in the runic base. System notification. Adding 4 wood can put it into operation for 1 hour. System notification. Adding 1 soul can put it into operation for 8 hours. Klein was taken aback. A soul could be used as fuel? In addition, how much water would be left after 1 hour of operation? Klein didn't plan on consuming this soul. After all, it wasn't easy to obtain this thing from the crypt creatures. Obtaining wood was relatively easy. Let's first plunder the resources in the catacombs. Klein put the items away and looked elsewhere. There were some stones on the ground. He squatted down to pick them up. System notification. Stone +1. System notification. Stone +1. System notification. Stone +1. Stone +8. In addition, he dug out a large piece of wood and gained 2 units of wood. Klein opened the crafting interface. He locked onto one of the tools. Ordinary construction hammer. Wood 6 halves, stone 8 halves. He selected this item. He confirmed the crafting. Klein had wanted to craft this tool early in the morning. However, he was always short of stones. System notification. WOOD 2. Stone 2. System notification. Ordinary construction hammer successfully crafted. A simple-looking, large stone hammer appeared in Klein's hand. It had a wooden handle. The hammer's head was made of 2 fist-sized stones. Ordinary construction hammer. It can be used to construct and repair buildings. Your runic base needs it. Klein opened the runic base without tying his belt. When he faced the runic base again, 2 options popped up on the interface. Repair, construction. Among them, the repair button was bright, and the construction button was gray. The repair wasn't complete, and construction of the runic base wasn't allowed. Klein tapped on the repair function. Repair progress. 0/6. Repair materials. Soul 1/1, stone 6/5, copper 4 halves, iron 1/2, fire rune 1/1, wind rune 0/1. A total of 6 materials were required. Currently, he was lacking a wind rune and a piece of iron. It seems like I can repair them separately. Klein first added a stone. The repair began. Stone 5. He raised his construction hammer and gave it a symbolic knock twice. The slightly damaged runic base was flattened in an instant. At this moment, when he checked the progress of the repair, it was already 1/6. It looks better than before. Klein put away the runic base and opened the trade channel. No one had traded with the water that was put up yesterday. Klein already had fire runes. Therefore, he changed the trade request to wind runes. Let's continue to the next catacomb. Klein began to check the catacombs in 5 directions. From the 5th to the 6th catacomb, every choice had risks. And from the 6th to the 7th catacomb, Klein inspected them. Every catacomb had rewards, and there was no danger. There's a bronze treasure chest in the back catacomb. There seems to be quite a number of items. After some consideration, Klein chose to dig the tunnel behind. Huff, 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 huff. He buried his head and continued digging. He arrived at the 7th catacomb. Klein immediately came in front of the bronze treasure chest. The golden prompt was non-toxic and harmless. Open the bronze treasure chest. System notification. Bronze treasure chest +1. System notification. Bronze treasure chest can be broken down into 4 copper pieces. Do you wish to break it down? System notification. Flint +1. System notification. Bacon +4. System notification. Ordinary healing medicine forging blueprint +1. System notification. Do you wish to learn ordinary healing medicine forging blueprint? Several notifications popped up in succession. Klein first broke down the copper treasure chest and learned the recipe for healing medicine. A light flashed. System notification. Successful learning. Klein opened the recipe list and found the recipe for healing medicine that he had just learned at the bottom. Ordinary healing medicine. Fluorescent grass 6/2, black vine 0/2, cold play grass 0/3, red flower 0/3, water 762/100 of a milliliter. There were only 2 materials he had. Klein took a glance and opened the trading channel. Searching for black vine, some people had collected it and put it up. While searching for cold play grass and red flower, there were also people putting it up for sale. These are not rare items. The seller only wants water and food. Also, no one is selling healing medicine for the time being. Klein ran to the chat channel again and searched for keywords such as injured and bleeding. Quite a number of results popped up. In less than 2 days, the catacombs had already produced many injured people. If he could produce healing medicine and throw it into the market, there would definitely be people who would want it. Of course, in the short term, water and food would definitely be the most sought after. After some time, when everyone steadied their footing, the healing medicine would show its value. System notification. 400 milliliters mineral water completed transaction, wind rune +1. As Klein pondered, the mineral water that he had put up for the entire night was finally sold. With that, all he needed to do was collect another piece of iron, and he would be able to completely restore the runic base. Klein only had less than a bottle of mineral water left, but he had exchanged it for a wind rune. A rune that symbolized the wind was engraved on the surface, and its surface emitted a green fluorescence. It felt as though a gentle breeze was blowing in his hand. Klein fiddled with the rune for a moment before putting it away. Continue digging. He picked up the shovel and checked the caves in 5 directions at once. Chapter 9. Repairing the runic base. The profit is 4 times the cost. The 8th catacomb. Klein was collecting black vines. It had been attached to the wall. The branches were thin like vines, and its trunk was thicker. A wave of harvesting yielded a total of 8 units of black vines. Apart from that, he also harvested the fruits of the black vines. The 8th cave was mainly made of materials. In the 7th cave, Klein checked 5 directions and found that none of the caves had danger. One of the caves was empty, and there were 4 caves left. Each of them had more or less some materials. Klein had already dug out 2 iron blocks, 2 copper blocks, 4 stones, and 10 wood blocks. Along with 8 black vines and 3 black vine fruits, he had harvested quite a lot. Among them, the black vine fruit was edible. Black vine fruit. Remove the outer skin, and you will be able to taste the purple fruit. It tastes sweet and sour, and is rich in vitamins. Currently, you have taken 1.5 stars of the satiation index. Overall score, 24. Klein took out a fruit. His first laughed loudly. The outer skin was rough and appeared purple-black, and it did not look good. However, in the underground world, it was good stuff to eat. Klein removed the hard outer layer. The purplish flesh was revealed. The air was immediately filled with a sweet and sour smell. In the 6th subterranean world, Klein pinched his nose and drank 2 bottles of lizard blood. There was still a strange smell in his mouth. After 3 days of being stimulated by the smell, a large amount of saliva was immediately secreted from his mouth. The first fruit to come to the subterranean world, Klein took a deep breath and took a fierce bite. The sweet and sour juice filled his mouth. It was seedless and tender. It felt good. He couldn't help but kick his feet. He didn't care about the juice staining his teeth as his lips turned purple. He took another bite. This was much better than eating wheat bread. One fruit was easily taken care of. Klein resisted the urge to eat the second fruit and opened the runic base. Holding the construction hammer in his hand, he opened the repair interface again. Repair progress. 1/6. Repair materials. Soul 1/1, copper 10/2, iron 3/2, fire rune 1/1, wind rune 1/1. The remaining 5 materials were all gathered. Repair all. Klein raised the construction hammer and struck the runic base. System notification. Soul 2, copper 2, iron 2, fire rune 1, wind rune 1. System notification. The excellent runic base has been successfully restored. The reminder flashed by. The inside and outside of the rune base were completely new. The first thing was the internal environment. It was no longer stained. The ground was clean, and the firing was done quickly. The base had doubled in size. Some of the potholes had already been filled up. The ventilation effect had improved a lot. Moreover, one could feel waves of warmth. It was probably the effect of the wind and fire runes. As for the outside, it was originally like a dilapidated mudhouse, but when a strong wind blew, it would collapse. That was not bad. After taking a look around, he opened the runic base's construction interface. Wooden door. In the entire cheetah, the runic base's existing features could be upgraded. It could also be rebuilt to improve the facilities within the base. It was all very simple and very basic. All of them looked simple. For example, the lighting equipment inside the base is not shown in the list. He probably needed to look for a manufacturing blueprint to learn it. 3 digs today, 7 to go. Klein took out the condenser and placed it on the ground. Add 4 more pieces of wood and activate the water condenser, he said. System notification. Wood 4. The water condenser shook slightly and was already activated. The flame pattern turned fiery red. Klein touched the water condenser with his palm again and could feel the surface temperature increasing. This thing can be used as a heater at night. After more than 10 minutes, the temperature remained at about 70 to 80 degrees. Klein couldn't help but open the lid. He looked down and saw that some water had already gathered in the condensation tank. Water droplets constantly emerged from the small hole above and fell to the bottom. The water was normal, and he didn't believe that it would boil. Too bad. It would be great if it could boil. Klein closed the lid and waited patiently. At this rate, there would be at least 300 milliliters of water in an hour. 4 units of wood for 300 milliliters of water. It's worth it. I believe there are a bunch of people who are willing to exchange 4 units of wood for 3 to 400 milliliters of water. No, even if it's 100 milliliters, there will still be people who are willing to exchange. Klein pondered for a moment and opened the trade channel. Currently, he could use the following resources. Water, wheat bread 1, lizard meat 6, black vine fruit 2, bacon 4. Copper 8, iron 1, wood 10, stone 5, sand 20, lizard skin 1, lizard bone 4, fluorescent grass 6, fluorescent grass seed 2. Flint 1, plastic bottle 3. Trade channel, seller. Klein 182. Trade item. 400 grams wheat bread. Requirements. Any 1 rune. Options. 1 soul. Inventory. 1. Seller's message. If you have any special items, you can make a private transaction. The 2 items were successfully placed on the shelves. Under normal circumstances, Any version of saliva would be around 15 milliliters to 20 milliliters. Although Klein was a black-hearted businessman who traded 15 milliliters for one piece of wood, to some players who were jealous of the lack of water, he was equivalent to a savior. In addition, Klein had his own considerations as to why he set a limited trading limit. If he allowed multiple transactions, it would be easy for it to be hoarded instead of being traded away. 20 stocks could be exchanged for 20 logs. If he operated the water condenser again, it could produce about 1,500 milliliters of water. The net profit was 4 times the cost. Chapter 10. The boss has killed crypt creatures? In the World Chat channel, friends who lack water and have wood, quickly go to the trade channel. Boss Klein is selling water again. What are you shouting for? Do you think there are too many people? Heh, don't even think about it. Boss Klein just put it up for sale, and in just a few seconds, it was already sold out. A group of people were staring at the trade market. What's wrong with Klein? This guy traded 400 milliliters yesterday, and now he's selling 300 milliliters. Does he have too much? Big Boss Klein, can you come out and say something? Which catacombs have you dug up? Can you tell me the strategy? There's bread over there. Klein needs runes or souls. I haven't even seen runes, and a few souls have appeared. Is this another killing tool? If nothing unexpected happens, he should have dug up quite a few catacombs. Sigh, his luck is really good. A group of people discussed the matter. In the World Channel for the past 2 days, Klein was the most unique. Other people would trade resources for food and drink, but he was the only one who did the opposite. There were runes and souls. It sounded like he was going to get high-grade resources. Water is too popular. Klein's wood supply had increased to 30 units. In less than a few seconds after it was placed up, it was immediately sold out. Many of the buyers who had managed to get 15 milliliters of water sent private messages to Klein thanking him sincerely for saving their lives. They also expressed that he could notify them in advance if he were to put up the water again. Alice sent a private message to Klein. Mr. Klein, can you tell me what a soul is? Alice, who had completed the transaction with Klein the last time, sent a private message. Klein happened to catch a glimpse of it. In fact, it wasn't just Alice who was asking. Thousands of people were asking about it one after another. The rest of the private messages were either begging Klein for alms, saying they were pitiful, or they wanted to use strange things to trade with him. To be able to ask what a soul was, it was likely that she didn't need to consider eating or drinking in the short term. Should I reveal this information? Klein thought for a moment and decided to tell everyone. Firstly, this wasn't important information. And, sooner or later, someone would be able to kill the crypt creature and obtain information about the soul. It was even possible that someone had already killed a crypt creature. Although crypt creatures were dangerous, there was no lack of fierce humans among the humans. A slide shovel would make a fierce tiger tremble 3 times. Killing a crypt creature will obtain a soul. Klein extracted the keywords and sent a group message. Alice. Awesome. Boss is awesome. Are crypt creatures dangerous? What can souls be used for? FK. We're still struggling to survive. Boss. Have you already fought monsters? What a joke. After learning that the soul came from the crypt creatures, all the players across from him had entered. There were also people who wanted to ask about the use of the soul. Regarding this, Klein chose to ignore them. Firstly, he didn't know much about it. Secondly, he wanted to exchange souls. If others knew about the use of the soul, they would unconsciously raise the bottom line of the transaction. He could hide it for a while. After Klein finished answering the private message, the news had already spread through the World Channel. I just asked Klein about it. He told me that only by killing the crypt creature can one soul be obtained. It wasn't just one person. The others also mentioned this matter. The boss must have killed a crypt creature before he found out. Many people speculated. The World Channel exploded. While they were carefully digging and struggling to survive, others had already killed a crypt creature. There was no way to compare. Klein didn't care about the situation in the World Channel. He only looked at private messages. It had to be said that after becoming famous, there were so many private messages that they exploded. Thankfully, private messages had a filtering function and could eliminate some junk private messages. Boss, do you need an ordinary down jacket blueprint? I want to exchange bread. Do you need an ordinary stone bowl blueprint? Can fluorescent grass be exchanged for bread? I have 10 units. Do you need a rope? Candles. Do you want a whip? There were all sorts of strange items to trade. It was a little too nonsensical. Klein focused on the blueprints, souls, and runes. No one mentioned the soul and runes. After half an hour of filtering, Klein replied to a private message from one of them. Rogers said, "Hey, boss, I have an excellent machete blueprint and an ordinary barbecue grill blueprint. There's also a fire rune. If you can exchange them, which one do you want?" Klein said, "I want all of them. I can give you an extra piece of cured meat." Rogers said, "That's great. Thank you, sir. I'm starving." Klein said, "Wait a moment. I'll go down to the rack first." After the two of them saw each other, they completed the transaction in private. The food could be cut. The cured meat might not be as big as bread, but the meat made one famished. System notification. 400 grams wheat bread completed transaction, fire rune +1. System notification. 1 bacon transaction completed, excellent machete blueprint +1, ordinary grill blueprint +1. 2 blueprints appeared in Klein's hands. None of them were runic devices. In the blueprint list, there were only spears and no swords. Learn them all. The 2 blueprints turned into 2 streams of light. Klein flipped open the blueprint list and looked at the synthesis formula. Chapter 11. Survivor deviation, obtained runic egg, ordinary grill. Wood 30 quarters, iron 1 quarter, copper 8 quarters. Excellent machete. Wood 30/1, iron 1 quarter. Klein currently had sufficient wood, but he lacked iron. However, as long as the batch of wood he had was converted into water, it wouldn't be difficult to exchange for iron. There were many people were selling iron in the trading market. However, iron was more valuable than wood. It was impossible to exchange 20 to 30 milliliters of water for 1 unit of iron. When Klein went to the trading market, it was for a piece of iron. 1 to 200 milliliters of water could be exchanged for 1 unit of iron. Of course, very few people would exchange for it. There was still a shortage of water and food. In other words, everyone was hoarding. Apart from Klein, no one knew what was in the next catacombs. If all the excavations were used up 10 times a day, food and water would be used up. They would be uncomfortable for the entire day. The water condenser was still a few minutes away from its end. Klein had nothing to do, so he went to the chat channel to look. The main reason was to gather some information. There was too much information in the world channel. Klein quickly scanned through it. He would only stop to take a look when he came across a keyword he was interested in. Some players had encountered crypt creatures before. However, they weren't killed. They were mostly beaten back. According to the players' descriptions, don't be afraid of crypt creatures. If you encounter them, use a shovel to demonstrate your strength. As long as you hit them 2 or 3 times, the crypt creatures would dig up the ground and escape. Klein believed more in the survivors' words. Only by surviving could one speak. The dead were all shut up. There were probably many players who died in a crypt creature's mouth. A few minutes later, the water condenser stopped functioning. System notification. Water plus 350 milliliters. Klein didn't put it into a plastic bottle. Instead, he opened the manufacturing page. He chose to use 4 pieces of wood to create a wooden bucket. The bucket had a capacity of 12 liters, which was enough for now. Klein poured all the water into the bucket. Currently, the total amount of water resources was 410 milliliters. After taking care of everything, he put away the water rune base and continued digging. The 9th catacomb was still a resource-based catacomb. There were 5 directions, but none of them were dangerous. One of them was empty. The basement on the left has a rich variety of resources. It has the plants you need. Klein chose to dig to the left. After digging for about 10 meters, a hole appeared. He drilled in. He saw rocks, iron, copper, and wood all over the ground. In the corner, there were red flowers that looked like snakes. Klein first went to gather flowers. If he guessed correctly, this thing was most likely red flower. It was also one of the ingredients needed for the ordinary healing medicine. Red flower. Edible plant. Be careful when picking it. Be careful of snakes nearby. Harmless little red flower. Pick it without worry. There's nothing nearby. Klein squatted down to gather it. It was still fully illuminated, leaving nothing behind. Red flower +6. He still didn't manage to gather any seeds this time. Next, he picked up the materials on the ground. Wood +6, iron +4, copper +3, stone +5. Now, I'm only 3 points away from being able to produce ordinary healing medicine. Klein opened the interface. The house in the upper left corner was still green. There's enough space to store the barbecue grill. If it's too crowded, I can also leave the grill outside. Klein didn't immediately build the barbecue grill. He would wait until lunchtime. He continued digging. He looked at the catacombs in 5 different directions. Digging upwards, there's a group of green scorpions here. Perhaps, when you dig upwards, the green scorpions will be nearby. With a light tap, you will die. Continue digging to the left. There is only 1 egg there, and it contains a special power. In the catacombs ahead, there's an injured crypt creature. It's on high alert. If you scare it, it will immediately escape. There are only a few materials in the catacombs behind. It might not be enough to satisfy your appetite. Dig down. There's an erotic magazine that can kill time as well as some snacks. If you feel lonely, you can give it a try. Only 3 directions indicated that there were resources. 2 directions indicated that there was a crypt creature. There's an egg on the left? Is it food? Klein pondered. Since the hint was that it contained a special power and didn't indicate any risk, it meant that it could be excavated. The resources in the other 2 directions weren't abundant, so they could be discarded. Klein continued digging to the left. The passageway was more than 30 meters long. There was an inflection point in the middle. He needed to use a shovel to try in order to find the correct direction. I've dug through. Klein put away the shovel, took out the short spear, and stepped into the 10th catacomb. No matter what, there was nothing wrong with being cautious. This catacomb was relatively narrow. It spanned about 3 meters. In the middle was a small protruding sand dune. Surrounded by sand, half of a big white egg was exposed. It was a size bigger than an ostrich egg. There's no danger around here. This egg is good stuff. Your lonely days are over. The golden words jumped. Lonely days are over? Could it be that a beautiful woman can hatch? Klein strode closer and observed the large white egg closely. Its surface wasn't pure white, but there were some silver patterns on it. He could only see it clearly when he got closer. The complicated patterns immediately made him think of the runic base and the water condenser. Is it related to runes again? Klein threw away the sand and picked up the white egg with both hands. System notification. Runic egg +1. Runic egg. Underage crypt creatures are sealed in the egg by runes. Dripping blood on it will break the seal and bind you. You will obtain a loyal companion that doesn't need to hatch. Chapter 12. A new crypt creature? Yellow sand octopus. Bind it with blood? Klein took a closer look, but he couldn't see the situation inside clearly. He didn't know how big this thing was. If it was small in size, he could still feed it. If it was large in size, he couldn't release it for the time being. Otherwise, it would consume too much resources if he had an extra mouth. Under normal circumstances, if it was outside, Klein wouldn't think of it as a large-sized creature. But in the catacombs world, even a metal ball could turn into a big stone house, not to mention such a big egg. Klein put his ear to the eggshell. It's quiet in there, nothing's happening. Keep it until the food is sufficient. Klein put away the egg and thought of something else. Since crypt creatures can dig for crypts, can a player's pet bring something back from another crypt? For example, if Klein wanted to excavate the left side, he could have his pet search for materials in the other subterranean caverns. Klein thought for a moment before saying, "There's a clause in the rules that states that once you enter the next subterranean cavern, the return passage will be sealed. I wonder if there are any targeted crypt creatures?" Klein didn't believe that the game creator would leave behind any major bugs. Especially in the description of the runic DNA. The keyword was, bound to you. Forget it, I'll dig another catacomb now. Klein's eyes darted around as he looked at the hints in every direction. After thinking for more than 10 seconds, he chose to dig ahead. There was a copper treasure chest in the front of the underground cave, and the hints indicated that there were no crypt creatures. In less than 3 minutes, he successfully entered the 11th underground catacomb. Klein went straight for the copper treasure chest. However, he didn't open it immediately. Be careful, this treasure chest is smeared with poison. If you touch it, you will be poisoned as well. It will cause you to have difficulty moving for the next 3 days. The hint this time was different. Good lord, They even smeared some poison on the surface of the treasure chest. If I'm not careful, I might have to stay here for 3 days. Klein secretly rejoiced at the golden hint. If it were anyone else, they would definitely have opened it foolishly. Use lizard skin. A piece of skin appeared in Klein's hand. He was opening the treasure chest. The material inside was relatively rich. System notification. Excellent dagger +1. System notification. Map, small, +1. System notification. Flint +1. System notification. 250 milliliters pure milk +2. System notification. Excellent sleeping bag +1. The dagger was exquisite, about 10 centimeters long, and it had a scabbard. The pure milk was in a paper bag without a label. The sleeping bag was stuffed under the treasure chest. It was dark blue in color and 2 meters long. As for the treasure chest, Klein touched it from the inside and disintegrated it into copper on the spot. The toxicity naturally disappeared. Of the few rewards, the sheepskin map was the most special. Map, small. This is the distribution of the nearby catacombs. It's an explorer's favorite. Klein unfolded the map. He saw that the middle location was marked with a red dot. With this catacombs as the center, it extended outwards, with dozens of catacombs of various sizes. Furthermore, each catacombs would be marked. For example, with the red dot as the center, the catacombs at the back, which was the 10th catacombs that Klein came out of, were clearly marked with the runic egg. There was no risk. The map didn't only show the adjacent catacombs. The 5 catacombs adjacent to the 10th catacombs were also marked. It meant that with this map, one could know the specific situation of the 2 catacombs below. To ordinary players, this was a good item. To Klein, its usefulness was discounted by his system. After all, he could see the hints of the adjacent catacombs. I don't know if the sheepskin is 100% accurate. As Klein looked at the map, he looked at the golden hints of the next catacombs. The next catacombs could all be matched. This catacomb, matter is xenogenic? What is this thing? Klein decided on the mark on his map and fell into deep thought. If he wanted to go to the xenogenic catacombs, he needed to dig to the right first. After reaching the next catacombs, he would dig further down. There was nothing in the catacombs on the right. If he followed the instructions, Klein wouldn't have chosen to dig to the right, and he would have missed the xenogenic catacomb. It's marked as harmless, and it's another special item. I have to get it. Klein put away the parchment and decided on the order of the next 2 excavations. He thought for a moment before saying, "Let's first plunder all the materials in this catacomb." He walked around and found 2 iron blocks and 2 wood blocks. After confirming that there were no other items, he headed to the catacomb on the right. In this round of harvest, the sleeping bag could improve the quality of life, the dagger could defend himself and cut, and the good milk could be drunk as water. Only flint, Klein already had one, and it could be used for a long period of time. The second flint could be stored or traded on the market. The 12th catacomb. The moment Klein entered, he immediately checked the catacombs below. There's a strange item in the catacomb below. However, a crypt creature is wandering in the catacombs. If there's a sharp sword, it's very easy to deal with it. There was a slight deviation in the bottom chart. In other words, as long as I have ultimate move, I won't have to be afraid of the yellow sand octopus. Klein heaved a sigh of relief. If the risk of digging down was too great, he might have to give up. Open the manufacturing interface, Klein thought to himself. He slid the list down. Excellent machete. Wood 34/1, iron 7/4. Selected machete. Confirmed manufacturing. System notification. Wood 1, iron 4. System notification. Excellent machete successfully forged. A shiny machete appeared in Klein's hand. It had a wooden hilt. The blade was 1.2 meters long, reflecting the luster of metal. The blade was extremely sharp. Chapter 13. Successfully killed the yellow sand octopus. Xenogenic found. It is a very excellent machete. Feel free to use it. It will definitely be a good weapon. With this machete, you can easily break through the hard surface of a crypt creature. Klein slashed a few times into the air. He gradually became familiar with the weight of the machete. He had played with the machete a few months ago. It hadn't been long, 3 to 4 months. Back then, he had signed up for a club on a whim and spent a small sum of money. Now that he held the prop again, he couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity. Back then, he was only at the beginner level and couldn't use it skillfully. But for the current Klein, the skills he had learned regarding the use of the machete, as well as a bit of proficiency, were all extremely crucial. There's a strange item in the catacomb below. However, it's a troublesome yellow sand octopus that's wandering around in the catacombs. Use a machete to chop it up. Be careful of its sand-spitting ability. You should know the consequences of being caught by the monster. Klein checked again and the notification changed. With that, he could dig without worry. He sheathed his machete and took out his shovel. He picked a spot. He began digging. He continued downwards. The tunnel grew longer and longer. Klein focused his attention and threw away the last shovel. As he fell, he put away his shovel. This time, he landed on the high platform in the catacomb. He took out the shovel and quickly scanned his surroundings, searching for the location of the yellow sand octopus. There were multiple spots in the 13th catacomb. It was 14 to 15 meters in length. The ceiling was slanted, and Klein's side was the high spot. In addition, there were more high platforms. They were not far from Klein, so he could jump over them. Is that thing the xenogeniac? Klein immediately saw a strange, fleshy thing on a stone pillar 10 meters away from him. It looked like a sarcoma. It was roughly oval in shape, and it could beat like a heart. It was indescribably strange. Where is the yellow sand octopus hiding? Klein searched carefully, but he didn't find it. He jumped onto an adjacent earth pillar and searched again, but he still didn't find it. Since it is an octopus, could it be hiding in the sand? Klein was taken aback and immediately raised his vigilance. There was an earth pillar under his feet. At the same moment, the entire earth pillar quickly collapsed. Thankfully, Klein had been warned beforehand and quickly adjusted to the ground. Just as he landed, two children's thick arms swung at him. Klein quickly retreated. His arms weren't grabbed, but his ankles weren't spared. Klein put away his machete and cut off both of its tentacles. Just as the hint described, it wasn't difficult to deal with yellow sand octopus. The tentacles looked like tofu under the excellent machete. My strength has unknowingly increased by quite a bit. Klein guessed that it was due to the lizard's blood. After digesting it during this period of time, his physique had improved in all aspects, including his reflexes. Including the fact that his arm wasn't entangled just now, it was also because his reflexes were faster that he managed to escape. The severed tentacles quickly retracted. However, it also exposed the yellow sand octopus's location. This fellow had fallen under the sand layer of the earthen pillar. When it retracted its tentacles, it brought along dark green blood and two colored holes. Klein quickly rushed forward. Poof! Suddenly, a yellow sand octopus's head popped out of the sand. It opened its mouth and a ball of yellow sand protruded out. Klein was already prepared. A mineral water bottle appeared in his left hand. Before the yellow sand reached his eyes, he had already raised his hand to block it. It was transparent and could effectively block the sand. Of course, through the yellow sand, the visibility was still not high. However, the yellow sand did not enter his eyes. But it would not cause him to temporarily lose his vision. Suddenly, another tentacle swung over. The yellow sand octopus probably thought that Klein had been hit. It came at the right time. Klein did not retreat but advanced instead. He flashed past. He raised his hand and slashed. A slash landed on the octopus. His hand slid down from the depths of the octopus. Yellow sand octopus, dead. System notification. Soul +1. Klein dug the yellow sand octopus out of the soil. Each tentacle was about 4 meters long. This fellow's entire body was earthy yellow. It didn't have the unique smell of seafood, but had earthy smell. It had a soft appearance and bulging eyes. It had a bunch of sharp teeth that were as long as a thumb. Klein disintegrated the corpse. System notification. Yellow sand octopus meat +1-2. System notification. Yellow sand octopus blood +200 milliliters. System notification. Yellow sand octopus decompression +1. The one-eyed lizard was large, but it didn't have much meat. The yellow sand octopus was soft and rich, and it could be used as food. Klein immediately checked its meat and blood. The lizard blood from last time was a great tonic. He wondered if the yellow sand octopus would have a similar effect. Yellow sand octopus. Rich in nutrients. The meat is tender and tastes good. Current satiation index. 3 stars. Overall score, 68. It had a slightly higher score than the lizard meat. Yellow sand octopus blood. Blood that doesn't have much nutrients. It has a certain degree of attraction to most crypt creatures. Klein put away the blood in disappointment. It had other uses after all. He couldn't throw it away. At the very least, there would be people who would be willing to take it if it was put on the market. The blood of the yellow sand octopus could be used as a water supplement. Next, it was time to look at that xenogenic. Klein walked towards the xenogenic. The stone pillar wasn't tall, only about a meter. Looking at it up close, its appearance was even uglier. Chapter 14. Discovery of an iron treasure chest. Ordinary xenogenic. Implanted into the body of a crypt creature, it can create a meat field. As long as it is watered daily, it can produce an endless amount of meat. When Klein saw the description of the item, he tried his best to imagine the so-called meat field. What exactly was it like? As long as it is watered, it will grow meat. Was there no need to eat? In less than half a minute, he touched something. A defective xenogenic. System notification. Ordinary xenogenic +1. A heart-sized sarcoma like xenogenic was held in his hand. Plop, plop. The xenogenic was gently beating in Klein's hand. He could understand some of the minute blood vessels from looking at it. There was even hair on the surface. Klein observed it carefully again and said in astonishment, "No, it's not hair. It's more like a short fur. This thing looks really unlikable." However, when he thought about how this thing could solve the problem of meat in the future, he had to put it away no matter how ugly it looked. The xenogenic could only be implanted in a living crypt creature. It wasn't easy to deal with. If he were to fight a crypt creature, he might lose his life if he wasn't careful. How would he dare to show mercy and get a living creature? The yellow sand octopus's attack power was weak, so it was easy to capture it first. I might be able to use the octopus, but I still need cash. For example, a large net. Klein gently waved his hand. He opened the manufacture page again. Large stone bowl. Stone 10 halves. After consuming 2 stones, he created a large bowl made out of stone. Klein then put away the stone pillar as well. He used the shovel to dig a few times before it suddenly loosened. He picked it up and threw it into the base. Then, he dissected it. System notification. Stone +10. He had used up 2 units and was immediately replenished. He already had 18 units of stone and it took up quite a bit of space. He said, "Let me take a look at the next catacombs." Klein had 2 more excavations left today. At this moment, it wasn't noon yet. The main reason was that the route he had chosen today was less risky. He had killed 2 crypt creatures in total. The one-eyed lizard was relatively stronger, but the reason was because he had first poked out its one eye. The yellow sand octopus's attack ability was weak, so he had used a plastic bottle to resolve its trump card. The main reason was to rely on intelligence to win. Continue digging down. You will encounter a small pond with a nest of poisonous flying insects. If you can wrap your entire body, you can give it a try. In the cave on the right, there's a room full of air. In the cave on the left, there are treasure chests that you have not opened before. As long as you bypass a few traps, the materials are at your fingertips. Dig ahead. There's a plant waiting for you to harvest. You might even be able to find a few materials. Digging in the back isn't a good idea. This is a fire chamber. Unless you're willing to take the risk of being burned and digging a tunnel to escape, you can mature as much as you want. Klein looked in 5 directions. He didn't need to think much and directly chose the left catacomb. Traps were fatal to others, but they were useless to him. He chose a suitable spot and began digging. In less than a minute, he could already see the black hole. Klein carefully stepped into the 14th catacomb. His gaze instantly focused on the treasure chest that was 10 meters away by the corner of the wall. From the looks of it, it should be an iron treasure chest. It was naturally above a bronze treasure chest. He said, "Find the location of the traps." With his standing position as the center, Klein swept his gaze across the ground and walls. There's a hidden danger under the sand at this location. Once you step on it, you will sink into the sand and become delicious meat paste. There's a hidden danger under the sand at this location. Once you step on it, you will sink into the sand and become delicious meat paste. There were more than 1 or 2 spots. There are a total of 8 spots that I can't step on. Unless you're extremely lucky, it's very difficult to avoid them. Klein secretly clicked his tongue. Then, he stepped on the empty space outside the mechanism and came before the iron treasure chest. Iron treasure chest. It's a level higher than a copper treasure chest. Usually, there will be a small surprise when it's opened, but there might also be hidden danger. There's a small surprise inside this iron treasure chest. There's no danger. Klein first checked the situation of the treasure chest. After confirming that it was harmless, he opened the iron treasure chest. System notification. Iron treasure chest +1. System notification. Iron treasure chest can be decomposed into 4 pieces of iron. Do you wish to decompose it? System notification. Perfect runic crossbow blueprint +1. System notification. Do you wish to learn the perfect runic crossbow blueprint? System notification. Excellent anesthetic blueprint +1. System notification. Do you wish to learn the excellent anesthetic crafting blueprint? System notification. Wind rune +1. 2 crafting blueprints and 1 wind rune. Furthermore, it was the first time he had obtained a perfect crafting blueprint. As expected of an iron treasure chest, Klein held a crafting blueprint in each hand. Perfect runic crossbow crafting blueprint. It belongs to a runic combat device. The bolts it fires can easily pierce through iron plates, and the speed of the bolts is as fast as the wind. The water condenser was a daily runic device, while the runic crossbow was a combat device. Excellent anesthetic blueprint. Just a little bit is enough to make a cow fall in 5 seconds. This was the second medicinal formula that he had collected so far. Obsidian could create runic crossbows. With the anesthetic, wouldn't it be able to capture crypt creatures alive? Klein's eyes lit up. These 2 items could solve the problem. He kept the runes. The iron treasure chest was disintegrated. He learned all the blueprints. 2 beams of light fused into Klein's body. Klein couldn't wait to open the list of items to be made. He looked at the list of runic crossbow and anesthetic. Chapter 15. Plan to capture living crypt creature. Perfect runic crossbow. Iron 7 halves, copper 15 halves, wind rune 1/2. 5 crossbow bolts. Iron 7 halves. Excellent anesthetic. Cold play grass 0 halves, cricket flower 0 halves, skeleton grass 0 halves, fire source. The runic crossbow had a set of crossbow bolts, so there was no need to obtain the blueprint again. The runic crossbow is missing a wind rune. The ingredients for the anesthetic aren't complete either. I wonder if other people still have wind runes? The ingredients for the anesthetic should be relatively easy to obtain. Klein had previously browsed the exchange market and saw all sorts of strange plants. To most players, it was better to try to exchange for other resources if they didn't have enough food to eat. I'll search the catacombs first. I wonder if these traps can be dug out? Klein closed the interface and looked elsewhere. As a qualified locust, it was natural to pluck its surroundings bare. Other than illustrations, anything that could fit inside had to be taken away. Klein took out a shovel and dug near one of the traps. After 2 or 3 tries, there was a poof under the sand, followed by black smoke. It's destroyed? Klein forcefully shoveled and dug out the sand. There was nothing else. The golden words no longer indicated that there was danger there. Klein stepped on a corner. This place was no different from other places. Hey, I don't believe it. He went to dig out a few more traps. No matter how careful he was, the final result was black smoke. There was nothing below. Klein couldn't help but suspect that the trap was too fragile to be supported by runes. It would shatter at a touch. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have needed to carefully go around it. Klein searched the entire area. There was only an iron treasure chest in the catacombs. There were no other resources. There was only one excavation opportunity left today. Klein planned to strike while the iron was hot. He checked 5 directions. There's nothing in the catacombs on the left. Dig backward and you'll encounter a single-horned sandhound. There are many resources available in the catacombs. Perhaps you can wait a little longer. It's still a little risky to enter now. There are some fruits in the catacombs ahead. There's only lava and rocks in the catacombs below. The lava will limit your next choice. Dig upwards. You will encounter a single-horned sandhound. If you're lucky, you might lose an ear or a nose. Digging in ahead was not only safe, but there were also fruit resources. But Klein didn't plan on choosing to go forward. Instead, he planned on digging backward. If he could produce anesthetics, even without the runic crossbow, he would still have a chance of capturing the single-horned sandhound alive. According to the hint, there was only a small risk if he went down now. The reason why Klein wanted to wait was that he wanted the golden hint at his constitution again. Or perhaps, he needed to contact his saber techniques more. Klein opened the trading channel. Klein opened the runic base and sat on the ground. Currently, the resources he had were as follows. Water 410 milliliters. 250 milliliters pure milk 2, black vine fruit 2, lizard meat 6, bacon 3, octopus meat 12. Copper 15, iron 7, wood 31, stone 18, sand 10, lizard skin 1, lizard bone 4, fluorescent grass 6, fluorescent grass seed 2, black vine 8, red flower 6, octopus fangs 2. Soul 1, wind rune 1, fire rune 1, runic egg 1, ordinary xenogenic 1, flint 2, plastic bottle 3, sleeping bag 1, sheepskin map 1, octopus blood 200 milliliters. Even if he didn't move, he could hold out for a long time. These people were selling at too high a price. Klein browsed around and wasn't satisfied with the price of the materials he needed. He thought for a moment and said, "It's better for me to collect them myself and use water to exchange for other materials." Klein pondered for a moment and listed a few trading methods. Seller. Klein. Item. 20 milliliters water. Requirement. 1 Coldplay grass. Inventory. 12. Item. 25 milliliters water. Requirement. 1 skeleton grass. Inventory. 2. Item. 1 cured meat plus 70 milliliters water. Requirement. 1 wind rune. Inventory. 1. A total of 410 milliliters water and 1 cured meat. 3 sets of trading plant ingredients could be used to concoct 2 sets of ordinary healing medicine and 1 set of excellent anesthetic. As for the wind rune, Klein didn't know if he could exchange for it. Perhaps, he would need to increase the price before anyone would be tempted. In less than half a minute after the 4 sets of trading were done, the 3 sets of trading plant ingredients were all completed. "Boss, why didn't you inform me? I have Coldplay grass too. Brother Klein, can you give me some water? I'm so thirsty." FK. Boss is selling water resources again. "Boss, I have a lot of wood here. Can I exchange it for water?" Private messages came one after another. This was already Klein's 4th time selling water and food. They didn't know how much of Klein's stock was left. The World Channel and the Regional Channel once again revolved around Klein's discussions. After Klein received the plant materials and set the keywords in his private message, he ignored the private messages. He began producing anesthetics. Chapter 16. Pet-tail fox. His ability is actually high-speed movement? System notification. Stone 1. System notification. Stone bowl successfully created. System notification. Wood 1. Klein used a flint to ignite a portion of wood. To make an anesthetic, he needed a source of fire. In addition, he needed utensils. Firstly, it was necessary to make it, and secondly, it was used to store the powder and juice. He was ready. He opened the production interface. He selected the anesthetic. He chose to produce it. System notification. Coldplay grass 3, cricket flower 2, skeleton grass 2. All the medicinal herbs landed in the stone bowl. The flames enveloped the stone bowl. System notification. Excellent anesthetic has been successfully produced. The flames disappeared. A ball of black medicinal powder appeared in the bowl. Excellent anesthetic. 3/3. Klein picked up the stone bowl. He wanted to take a closer sniff, but he was worried that he would be affected. The number of times the anesthetic was used meant that it could be used 3 times. If he was worried that the effect of the anesthetic wasn't enough, he could apply it all 3 times to his weapon or pour it into water. "I need to add water to the healing medicine. I don't have any water at the moment, so I can't immediately produce it." Klein put away the anesthetic and looked at the hints in the catacombs behind him again. Dig backward and you'll encounter a single-horned sandhound. There are many resources available in the catacombs. Perhaps you can wait a little longer. There's still a bit of risk if you enter now. There was no change. Clearly, the anesthetic wasn't enough to change the situation. Should I continue waiting or use the runic egg? Klein removed the runic egg as his eyes burned. As long as he caught the crypt creature in the next catacomb, he would no longer have to worry about not having any meat to eat. Perhaps, having an extra pet could change the situation. I'm not waiting anymore. Klein thought about it and desperately wanted to know the specific situation of the runic egg. He had some concerns previously, and he was worried about having an extra mouth to eat. Now that he had a xenogeniac on hand, he was worried about having an extra mouth to eat. Now that he had a xenogeniac on his hand that could create a meat field, most of his worries were dispelled. Klein took out a dagger and gently cut open a wound on his finger. A drop of blood fell on the runic egg's surface. Instantly, the silver patterns on the eggshell emitted a luster. The runic egg shook gently. Then, it became more and more intense. Klein placed the runic egg on the ground and quietly waited for his pet to break the shell. It lasted for more than 10 seconds. Finally, with a crisp cracking sound, the eggshell shattered into pieces. The fragments turned into powder. Under the silver light, a creature that was obviously bigger than the wall runic egg gradually took shape. Cat? Dog? Wolf? From the outline of the silver light, Klein thought it looked like a dog. The silver light converged. A figure pounced into Klein's arms. Woo! Woo! Klein subconsciously hugged it. From the moment it broke out of its shell, Klein had already formed a strange connection with it. When it pounced over, it showed a sense of closeness, so Klein didn't dodge it. It felt furry and soft. Klein looked down. A pure white creature was lying on his body. Its two forelimbs hung on its left and right shoulders. It raised its head and was also observing Klein. Tail fox. A gentle crypt creature. It was born with 2 tails. As its bloodline grows stronger, the number of tails will increase until it becomes 9 tails. System notification. The pet interface has been activated. You can check the pet's abilities and status at any time. The tail fox was half a meter long, and its 2 furry tails were slightly longer than its body. It hung on Klein's body. Its watery eyes blinked and the corners of its mouth curled up. For a moment, Klein felt like he was seeing a woman. Klein swore that it was definitely not because he hadn't touched a woman in a long time. It was because the tail fox's demeanor was indeed like a human. He almost instantly thought of the legendary vixen. Female? Klein grabbed the back of the tail fox's neck and lifted it up. Tisk, as expected, there's no penis. He laughed. The tail fox drooped its body and let Klein do whatever he wanted. It had no intention of resisting. It only stared at him with its 2 tails moving slightly behind it. It doesn't look too powerful. Can it help in battle? Klein looked left and right, but he didn't see any sharp teeth on the tail fox. It was also small in size, and it didn't just have an extra mouth to eat. The tail fox cried out indignantly. It raised its 2 front limbs and bared its fangs and brandished its claws. Its 4 claws didn't look like a fox, but more like a cat. There were pink and tender pads. Ding! From the 2 pink pads, sharp claws that were as sharp as knives extended out. They were curved and long. It seemed to be saying, "Master, I'm very powerful. It looks pretty good." Klein smiled and threw the tail fox aside. He opened the pet interface. Tail fox. Name. Unnamed. Status. Healthy. Ability. High-speed movement. Checking its ability. High-speed movement. After the ability is activated, the movement speed will be increased by 3 times. Lasts for 10 seconds. Cooldown time. 30 minutes. Klein looked down. The white-tail fox was demonstrating its running speed. Shoo, shoo, shoo. It shuttled back and forth around him. All he could see was a flash of a white shadow. It was a little fast. He hadn't activated his ability yet. If it were to use high-speed movement, it would be very easy for it to succeed in a surprise attack at close range. Klein nodded secretly, acknowledging the strength of the tail fox. "Little fellow, stop," he shouted. "Shoo." The tail fox obediently stopped at Klein's feet. "You don't have a name yet. I'll give you a name." Klein paused for a moment and said, "I'll call you Little Fox for now. If I think of a good name in the future, I'll change it for you." This was the only way to give a useless name. Woo, woo, woo. The little fox rubbed its head against Klein's calf as though it was happy to have a name. It was so easily satisfied. Klein smiled and looked away. He checked the notification for the 3rd time. This time, the hint finally changed. Chapter 17. Capture a single-horned sandhound alive. Dig backward, and you'll encounter a single-horned sandhound. There are many resources available in the catacombs. A fox is enough to take down a single-horned sandhound. It's not shameful to live off a woman. Klein muttered, live off a woman. However, since the little fox could deal with the single-horned sandhound, there was indeed no need for him to make a move. Klein. Little fox, come over. Klein squatted down and waved at the little fox, who was enjoying herself on the ground. Little fox pounced into Klein's arms and rubbed her head against his chest. Her two pink ears gently shook and hit Klein's chin. Klein. Little fox, I'll give you a mission later. Klein saw the little fox stop acting cute and listened carefully. He smiled and said, I'll smear an anesthetic on your sharp claws. Remember, it's an anesthetic, so don't lick it. Little fox tilted her head and thought for a moment before nodding. Klein. We'll go to the catacombs at the back. After entering, we might encounter a big dog. Your mission is very simple. Use your powder-coated claws to give the big dog a few vicious blows. Don't kill the big dog, understand? Klein had already taken out a bowl of anesthetic. Little fox sat upright with a serious expression. This was her first mission, so she had to perform well for her master. Klein said, come and stretch out your right paw. Klein's finger gently tapped on the little pad on the right side of Little Fox. Little Fox obediently raised her right forelimb. With a brush, 4 metal-like sharp claws shot out. Klein's fingers were dipped in the powder and he carefully smeared it on the tips. The system reminded him that there were 2/3 of the excellent anesthetic left. He would just have to smear the remaining 2 times. Klein was worried that the dosage wasn't enough, so he decided to use all of them. Since the cost wasn't high, it was safer to use 2 more times. Klein said to the fox, follow me. Before we enter the next catacomb, it's best if you don't let the anesthetics on your 4 paws fall off. Retract them first. Klein patted Little Fox's head and took out a shovel to start digging. The fox followed closely behind. The black hole appeared less than 20 meters from the excavation. Klein turned his head. The fox was standing on 3 feet on the ground, her right forelimb still raised. Klein said, you've already retracted your claws. Don't worry, the anesthetic will fall off. He didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. Only then did the fox put down her right forelimb. Remember what I said just now. All you have to do is give the big dog a few hits. Don't kill it. After the mission is accomplished, I'll treat you to roast meat for lunch. After giving his instructions, Klein took the lead and stepped into the black hole. The small fox followed closely behind like a loyal bodyguard. The 15th catacomb. There was a wide field of view. It was about 30 meters wide and flat. Klein immediately became alert the moment he stepped into the catacomb with his machete in hand. A series of low growls came from in front of him. He focused his eyes and looked over. 10 meters away, a big, yellowish-brown wolf dog was baring its teeth. It had a black foot, little fur on its body, and a robust body. A pair of ice-green eyes stared fixedly at Klein, as if warning him, you've barged into my territory. The moment the fox entered the catacomb, she saw a single horn. The fox immediately flew into a rage because it was disrespectful to its owner. The fox's voice was soft and cute, and it didn't have much of a deterrent effect. However, the single-horned sandhound wasn't willing to be outdone and provoked her again. Soon, Little Fox was like a white shadow and charged out like a cannonball. The single-horned sandhound also began to charge. This fellow wasn't slow. He lowered his head and aimed the horn in the direction of the fox. Klein didn't know if Little Fox was a match for it, but she quickly caught up with it with claws in her hands. Suddenly, Little Fox's speed increased. The single-horned sandhound wasn't expecting this, and there were 4 wounds on its body. Little Fox was light as a feather. She jumped away from the single-horned sandhound and landed lightly on the ground. She raised her chin slightly, feeling pleased with herself. The single-horned sandhound was even more infuriated. It ignored Klein and charged at the little fox once again. The high-speed movement skill wasn't over yet. Little Fox's speed wasn't something that the single-horned sandhound could catch up to. Its nimble movements allowed Little Fox to turn the tables once again, leaving another 4 scratches. The hound realized that its opponent was difficult to deal with. It glanced at Klein and slowly retreated. At that moment, its hind legs went limp and it sat down on the ground without Little Fox needing to go up. Klein hurriedly called out to Little Fox, who was about to attack again. A line of golden words jumped above the single-horned sandhound. The anesthetic has already taken effect. It can hold on for another 3 seconds at most. Klein silently counted down to 3 seconds. Once the single-horned sandhound lay on the ground, it gradually lost its movements. Klein took large strides forward and gave it a light kick. The effect was really good. Klein opened the runic base and first added 4 pieces of wood to the water condenser before starting it. The meat field needed to be watered and prepared in advance. He didn't know what the meat field looked like, so he pondered for a moment before taking out his construction hammer. Knock, knock, knock. System notification. Stone -8. In the corner of the base, the 2 large stone slabs were placed at right angles and upright, forming a container with the 2 walls. Once it was done, the meat field would be stored there. He didn't know if it had enough capacity. Klein picked up the unconscious hound and placed it into the 4-sided container. Not only could it be placed down, but it also had extra space. The anesthetic effect hadn't worn off yet, so when there was more water, he would implant the small fox in it. He wouldn't have to worry about the single-horned sandhound waking up and causing trouble. Chapter 18. Strange meat field, fragrant roasted meat. Half an hour passed, and the single-horned sandhound gradually regained consciousness. The anesthetic effect had yet to disappear, so it could only move in a small area. However, it was trapped in a square container, and it could only stare blankly. Klein opened the lid of the water condenser and took a look. The water was already about 200 milliliters. He began the process. He took out a dagger and came in front of the single-horned sandhound. He wanted to implant the xenogenic into the single-horned sandhound. The single-horned sandhound had its 4 limbs clamped in the corner of the wall, with its back facing the outside. Klein used all his strength to slide the dagger to tear a hole in his back. The single-horned sandhound let out a low growl, and the pain instantly struck it. Klein took it out from the boulder and gently propped it open. The flesh on the back of the single-horned sandhound was forcefully stuffed. The eyes of the single-horned sandhound revealed a look of fear. Klein saw a shocking scene through the crack. He saw a type of tentacle that grew rapidly after touching flesh and blood. It was rooted into the flesh like the roots of a large tree. It was an internal blood vessel. It was an increasingly repressed tumor-like substance that was firmly attached to the single-horned sandhound's body. In just a dozen seconds, the single-horned sandhound's body was reduced to nothingness from the bones that had disintegrated its body from the inside. Its body collapsed like a puddle of mud. The system reminded him. Klein leaned forward and looked down. There was only a puddle of meat under the xenogenic. It looked like it was made from minced pork. Ordinary meat was the sweet main ingredient. It was made from the life of a single-horned sandhound. This was the sweetness of meat. Klein had goosebumps all over his body. After watching the entire process, Little Fox shivered and jumped into Klein's arms to act coquettishly. She pointed at the meat and pointed at her own teary eyes. Klein understood what Little Fox meant and couldn't help but laugh. He said, "Don't worry, I won't do this to you." Little Fox shivered. She was clearly shocked. Curiosity had killed the fox. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have watched. Klein used the water dispenser to pour all of the water into the meat field. About 200 milliliters of water touched the meat field and was quickly absorbed into it. It even made gurgling sounds as though it was drinking water. At the same time, the entire meat field floated up a little. Boy, it was growing fast enough. Klein hesitated for a moment and didn't prepare to use his knife. He hadn't eaten a single piece of the one-eyed lizard meat or the yellow sand octopus meat. It was enough for a few meals. He didn't touch the meat field for now. He had used up all his excavations today, and it was already noon. Klein's stomach began to growl, and Little Fox wasn't doing any better either. She stared at him anxiously. Klein said, "I'll cook some barbecue for you later." An ordinary barbecue required 30 pieces of wood, 13 pieces of iron, and 15 pieces of copper. It was 1.3 meters tall, 1.8 meters long, and 1.6 meters wide. The system reminded him to add a piece of wood so that it could run for 30 minutes. The system reminded him to add a fire source on his own. Klein brought the barbecue and added a unit of wood to it. At the moment, there was more than enough wood for 25 units of barbecue. He fired a flint and took out a piece of one-eyed lizard meat and 2 pieces of yellow sand octopus meat. He used a dagger to cut them into pieces to be placed on the barbecue. Under the sizzling heat, the barbecued meat emitted a meaty fragrance. It was too fragrant. Klein took a deep breath of the meaty fragrance. Although he had been in the catacombs for less than 2 days, Klein felt like he hadn't eaten meat for at least a month or 2. His mouth was salivating crazily. It would be even better if there were spices. As Klein flipped the barbecued meat, he opened the trading channel and searched for spices. There were more than 100 types of seasonings, and their prices were all inflated. There were quite a few types of seasonings. There was pepper powder and sea salt MSG. Using cured meat to exchange for seasonings? Klein wanted to put the trade on hold, but on second thought, even half a piece of cured meat was definitely worth more than a bottle of seasonings. He might as well try it on the World Channel. He immediately opened the World Channel. He hadn't used the small speaker today. Klein. Savory cured meat for seasonings. If the price is high, do not contact me. This piece of news from the World Channel immediately spread through the entire channel. In China, Klein was now very famous. The moment the news was released, it was immediately captured by many people. Klein, the rich man, is here again? Some people had already given the title of rich man to Klein. In just a few seconds, Klein received tens of thousands of private messages. Some of them did have condiments, while others planned to use other substances to exchange for them. Boss, give me a piece of meat to eat. I have an ordinary doll blueprint that I can exchange for it. Boss, I have a bottle of pepper. Can I exchange for it? Klein naturally chose the best. He would trade with whoever gave him a lot of conditions. Of course, if there were special items, he didn't suggest using cured meat or lizard meat or yellow sand octopus meat to trade. Now that he had sufficient capital and a meat farm, he would trade if he could. Chapter 19. Food and drink, how refreshing. Klein's exchange of condiments became the topic of discussion for a moment. Is this the difference? We are still worrying about food and drink, and the big boss has already begun to improve the quality of life as much as possible. Could it be that condiments can be synthesized? It had been a long time since he had eaten meat. There was a high probability that Klein could already make a fire and cook because he could trade extra bacon for condiments. Everyone, please give me a bite to eat. I haven't had a bite for an entire day, and I feel like I'm about to die. Is Klein already so full of meat that he can't finish it? There is also a piece of cured meat hanging on the trade channel. It can only be exchanged with wind runes. Everyone's envy was self-evident. They hadn't even finished eating, and Klein was already thinking of ways to improve the quality of his life. One had to know that no one cared about the condiments put up for trade. Although some people were hungry enough to eat the condiments, it was a forced choice. Furthermore, eating an entire bottle of condiments often brought another problem: drinking water. Mike Wilson. Hey sir, I have a bottle of black pepper, a bottle of rosé salt, and a serving of chili noodles. Can I exchange them for the cured meat on your hands? Klein found such a line from many private messages. Most of the traders had a condiment on hand, which was already pretty good. 2 of them were already very good, but this guy actually had 3. Klein immediately replied that it was fine. Mike Wilson. Thank you. Klein went to the exchange market and hung up a whole piece of cured meat. Then, he chose 3 condiments as the exchange item. He didn't need to worry about others being one step ahead of him. The seller could set it to be private when he placed it up and only allow the sharing to be similar to sharing links with friends on his communication software. Klein threw the link to Mike Wilson. A moment later, the transaction was completed. The black pepper powder, rose salt, and chili noodles were all in his hands. The seller also stripped the packaging and only gave him spices. Klein had no choice but to make 5 additional stone bowls. 3 of the bowls were used for spices, and the other 2 stone bowls were used for eating. One of them was for Klein to give to the little fox, while the other was for himself. Little fox was already drooling, swallowing from time to time. Her bright eyes could no longer be moved away, and she obediently sat by the barbecue grill, raising her head and constantly sprinkling seasoning on the barbecue. Klein had just washed his hands with a bit of water from the water condenser. He grabbed a bit of black pepper with his fingertip and gently sprinkled it on top. The black pepper emitted a charming smell under the roasting flames. As for the rose salt, it didn't need to be added. The black pepper was enough to enhance the flavor. The fox couldn't wait any longer. "Don't rush me, you little glutton. It's almost done." Klein poked it gently with his dagger. The roast meat was already cooked. He split the roast meat in half and placed it in 2 bowls. "Be careful, it's hot." Klein placed one of the portions in front of the fox. The fox couldn't help but stretch out its tongue and agilely roll up a piece of meat. The tongue was pink with thorns. Little Fox took a deep breath and chewed as if it had been scalded. Klein smiled and shook his head as he started eating. The roasted meat was extremely delicious in his mouth. It was better than any experience Klein had before. Klein chewed very carefully and slowly experienced the taste of the roasted meat exploding in his mouth. After entering the catacombs, it was his first time eating meat. How refreshing. He had also dug up cured meat today, so he hadn't eaten it yet. Compared to the yellow sand octopus meat, the taste of the one-eyed lizard meat was much worse. The muscles were a little tough, so he chewed on more. The tender taste of the octopus was completely different from the octopus he had eaten before. The man and the fox ate their fill, and their mouths felt uncomfortable after eating the roasted meat. Klein took out a bottle of pure milk and poured half of it for the fox, then he drank another half. The afternoon was very leisurely. Klein had already exhausted the number of excavations he had done today. When the food in his stomach was more or less digested, he began to practice his knife and short spear. Midway, there was poop nearby, so he dug a pit to settle it. When the little fox saw the squat toilet, she ran over and sat beside him. Klein tore the parchment map into 2 parts, and one of them was used as toilet paper. After each of them was done, they would deal with it separately. However, the stench in the air wasn't very pleasant, so Klein temporarily stopped the water condenser from producing water. After all, it was absorbing water vapor. If the stench was sucked in, the water condenser would be in operation since noon. Klein added 24 units of wood in one go. It could last for 6 hours, and he would receive 350 milliliters per hour. After 6 hours, Klein would receive 2,100 milliliters. With the remaining amount, if he didn't consume it, it would be close to 2,300 milliliters. The bucket had a capacity of 12 liters, and it was fully capable of holding it. The sky gradually darkened. System notification. Stone 3. System notification. Stone pot has been successfully forged. There was 1 unit of stone left in the inventory. Klein held the stone pot and planned to make meat soup for dinner. The stone pot was still placed on the grill and added to the wood. Just as Klein was about to light the fire to cook, a private message popped up. "Do you want earth runes?" It was a message from Alice. Previously, it was Alice who had exchanged water runes with Klein. Chapter 20. Aren't you a little too rich? Yes. Do you want food or water? Klein's current demand in the market was for wind runes. However, as long as it was a rune, he would accept it. He wouldn't use it for the time being and could use it as a strategic reserve. Alice had used runes to exchange for a piece of bread the last time, but this time, she didn't know what substance it was. The girl looked like she had a good connection with the elements. She found another earth rune. Alice said, "I want to sleep. Can I exchange 1 earth rune for 500 milliliters? Klein said, "Sure, Alice." Alice said, "Since it's so simple, I should ask for more. Can I go back on my word?" She had thought that it was the same as last time when she had been slashed. Klein said, "It's useless to go back on your word. If you want to raise the price now, I won't agree." He took precautions in advance to prevent the other party from raising the price. Alice said, "Boss, you're too heartless. 500 milliliters of water is fine too. I haven't found any water for a day, and my mouth is so dry." Klein said, "Okay, I'll connect it to you later. In the future, if you have anything good, you can look for me. I can give you a discount for my old customers." Alice said, "Sigh, all right. If it weren't for the fact that I can't exchange for water now, I wouldn't be willing to use runes to exchange for it." Back and forth, he had conned 2 runes from her. Klein didn't feel any guilt. Everyone took what they needed. Runes. It was temporarily difficult to exchange for food and water outside. He estimated that in another 3 to 5 days, the food and water trade would gradually appear. When that time came, the price would definitely rise. Even as a player, he wouldn't be the only one to find the water-making equipment. A moment later, system notification. 500 milliliters of water completed transaction, Earth Rune +1. After the transaction ended, Alice sent another message. Even though this water is enough to last me for a few days, I've seen you trade water many times today. Did you dig up a water source? Or do you already have the ability to make water? In my regional channel, someone dug up a water gathering item, and the materials required to make it are especially high. A water gathering basin? Klein guessed that it was probably similar to a water gathering basin. It could also be that Alice was lying. As for the reason, she probably wanted to get some information from Klein. Klein thought for a moment and replied, "Help me ask if they want to exchange a water gathering basin. The price isn't a problem. If there really was a water gathering basin, it would naturally be good to get it. It wouldn't be a pity if it didn't have a name." Alice said, "All right, I'll help you pass the message." The other party seemed to understand that Klein wouldn't answer the question, so she didn't continue to pester him. He wouldn't go too far. It wasn't as far as Klein could go. Continue cooking dinner. Pork soup was made by adding 600 milliliters of water into the pot, followed by adding 1 ladle of octopus meat. Normally, if one wanted pork soup, they would need more water. But to conserve water, there was no harm in drinking some soup. 2 pieces of meat were cut into slices and put into the water to boil thoroughly. Then, some seasoning was added. 2 bowls of steaming hot broth came out of the pot. During this period of time, Alice sent a message saying that the others didn't plan on selling the water gathering basin. Klein could only give up. After dinner, the water condenser had stopped functioning. The transactions used 500 milliliters, the preparation of the broth used 600 milliliters, and the watering of the meat field. The current stock was 1,100 milliliters. The wood resources were all used up. It'll take about 10 hours until daybreak. I'll exchange for 50 pieces of wood first. Klein opened the transaction channel and continued to sell water resources. As for the price, it was the same as last time. Seller. Klein. Item. 15 milliliters mineral water. Requirement. 1 wood. Stock. 50. Transaction settings. You can complete a transaction only once. Seller's message. If there are special items, it can be privately communicated. Water is not a problem. Inventory. 50. A total of 750 milliliters of water. That was too extravagant. The put-up sale once again caused a heated discussion in the chat channel. Some people suspected that Klein had a water-making device, while others said that he might have dug into an underground river. There were many strange ideas. In just a dozen seconds, all 50 sets of transactions were completed. Klein added 40 more pieces of wood to the water condenser. He didn't immediately activate the water condenser. It had been operating for half a day, so it needed to rest for an hour or two. There's 350 milliliters of water left. I can first make a set of healing medicines. Klein turned to the manufacturing interface. Ordinary healing medicines. Fluorescent grass 5 halves, black vine 8 halves, cold play grass 9/3, red flower 6/3, water 350 milliliters, 200 milliliters. Selected items. Selected production. System notification. Fluorescent GRASS2, black VINE2, cold play GRASS3, red flower 3. System notification. Ordinary healing medicine has been successfully produced. In the stone bowl in front of Klein, there was an additional bowl of sticky black medicinal paste. Checking the details. Ordinary healing medicine. It won't let you down just because it doesn't look good. In the subterranean world, healing medicine is a good thing that can be trusted. External medicine can quickly heal wounds, and internal medicine can treat internal injuries. It's a must-have item for adventures. It was different from the anesthetics. 1 set of healing medicine could only be used once. Klein put away the healing medicine and continued reading his private messages. He was quite lucky. He traded another piece of yellow sand octopus meat for fire runes. Unfortunately, there was still no sign of the wind runes. Just as Klein thought that he wouldn't receive any wind runes today, he successfully sold the cured meat and water that had been put up there for an entire day. As a result, The runic crossbow was ready to be made.